Good afternoon. Welcome to the Veracas Blum Computer Consulting Monthly Webinar Series. My name is Kristen Baumgartner, and I have the pleasure of introducing to you Whitney Gilstrap, Director of Performance Marketing, Ryan Waldo, the Senior Account Executive, and David Fryoff. David, I'm really hoping I'm saying that correctly, the Senior Solutions Engineer with Sage AR Automation. Would you like to get paid faster and easier? Then you came to the right place today. And we know that this team is going to be able to show you just how Sage AR automation can help. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Whitney, and you are all set to go.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Appreciate your time. Just to cover some of the topics today. We'll be looking at the manual collections benchmarks, the challenges to the manual collections process, something that I'm sure at least somebody out there is dealing with, the AR automation benchmarks that we have, some of the takeaways, and Q&A at the end.
All right. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off for us today and just set the stage, really talking about, mainly about that manual process. And the first thing to really embrace here when it comes to the day-to-day actions that any department takes is that everything related to AR or collections really distills down into something that has to do with time. And because time is money and you're trying to collect on that money, that time equates directly to that cost center, which is going to be that AR department. So, I won't list all these out, but there's time to get the invoice to the right contact. There's the time the staff actually spends on any one individual invoice, which I'll go into a little bit later. And then essentially that entire quote to cash process that fuels your bank balance. And all these here, again, they have to do with time. And when it comes to the measure that you're having, most of those are probably also related to the time, or it should be in some way. So now that we have, reduced the manual time spent, how do we reduce that manual time that we're spending on any one individual invoice? And what I mean by manually processing is that you have a lot of human effort, I'm sure you're aware of, an additional delay getting the invoices out just by the nature of the process itself. You have to get it, you have to find the contact, you have to make sure it's the correct contact. Or the accurate one, maybe they've left the company. You have to form the email. You have to attach the invoice to it. Then you have to send it. And then when you add volume into this gets even more delayed and can delay that invoice process time even more. There's also the inconsistent communication. This can also delay things. There's inconsistent messaging or inconsistent tone. Maybe you get a reminder, maybe you're sending out reminders consistently, but maybe one collector is not, and they're not on the same cadence that they should be. But more importantly, if every one of your invoices is being processed manually, then those high value customers, maybe the ones that have a lot of business or the ones that make up the big orders, those ones who actually do want to have that human touch or that white glove touch, they don't often get that attention. And that's really because the attention of your agents or the collectors are distracted from those high value accounts. And they're just really bogged down in all of those manual tasks that I just mentioned involved with processing an invoice. So just to go into that a little bit deeper, we were able to establish some benchmarks on manual collection. So this is without any sort of automation tool. But in those benchmarks, what we found was that AR staff without AR automation or an automation tool require 25 to 40 minutes per call. And this is inclusive of prep time to get information together. There's call time, the actual call time with the customer, and then any post-call administration, or there's write-ups or any reporting within the aging report that has to be done. So I know 25 to 40 minutes per call seems like a lot, but that includes a lot of other things, not just the actual call. And through the combination of phone calls and emails, basically what we found that the average AR staff can complete around 40 to 60 outbound communications per day. And that also includes emails. That's not just phone calls. So I always like to say that everyone's like, wow, 60 calls a day. That seems like a lot. So that would be emails as well. And I know that it's easy to send that many emails. I know how many I get. But what we concluded was that with the limited capacity of the staff, that really meant that less than 10% of customers were being contacted after invoice presentment. And you can see why this is a big deal. And it really kind of comes back to that the staff is typically focused only on the 60 days plus past due and above, and those really delinquent customers that they need to chase. So just to go a little deeper into, some of those challenges with the manual process, I always use this comparison. I'm sure David and Ryan are sick of hearing it, but I always like to say that marketers, we have tools like HubSpot or Marketo, and sales has tools like Outreach or Sales Handy for automation. Customer success has tools like Zendesk or Intercom, but really one of the most vital parts of the business has little to no automation. And without that automation, businesses are going to face these challenges here. What you're seeing over here is a snapshot of what a manual collections process might look like. This is an aging spreadsheet. I know there's a lot of colors going on, but it's color coordinated so that they know how to escalate things. They know when certain things were touched on. And it's really the way, it's the way that most collectors are managing their collections and their AR. And so they'll have to manually export this from their ERP or their financial solution and make updates to it and share it out with the team. And typically, by the time you get it in a good place, it's already outdated. And so all of these activities are going to be done manually without the automation. And there's little to no visibility into the other team members. So just circling back, it's because they're chasing those 60 days plus past due because they're so bogged down and they're reliant on a manual process. And really that's reliant on Outlook or Gmail and Excel. All right, I will go ahead and hand this over to David.
All right, great. Thanks, Whitney. So, we're gonna go over 5 main features throughout the webinar today. So we're gonna go through the automated communications, that collective activity management, that self-service portal, the cash application, and then forecasting reporting. And we'll also go through some of that benchmark information that corresponds with each thing. And so through the benchmark, we found that we're able to save our current customers on average about 30% reduction in their DSO, a 3 times increase in the team productivity because we're helping automate the process for them. And we thought a 30% increase in cash flow as well, because we're able to automate the process and pull that cash in faster. So next slide, please. So a little bit about that benchmark data. So as you can see, we had a wide variety ranges of companies, about 18 different industries, revenue size of about 1.4 million to 1.4 billion. So a wide range with the average revenue size of about 205 million. And there were about 1.2 million accounts that we reviewed and 3.2 million invoices, with the invoice amount ranging from hundreds of dollars to $130,000. And so because we looked at a mix of strategy adoptions, which we'll kind of go through in the benchmark data today too, and then a pre and post implementation analysis, looking at how we've saved them both that time and help pull that cash in faster for them. Next slide, please. So first, let's look at the automated communications. So really the benefit of this is it eliminates that man reminder of the user having to go and try to touch all the different accounts at that point. It also helps ensure every customer is consistently contacted in the appropriate messaging based on that different group or segment. And then it centralizes all the communications in one place versus different collectors having it just in their inbox of them reaching out. Everything's centralized right within AR automation. And it also helps automate the contact management as well within the system. So what we saw was in that benchmark study, if you want to build this out, thank you. So we saw that, with no automated communication, the average day delinquent was about 39 days. And when we automated that communication out to the customer versus that manual process, we saw that come down to about 18 days in the average day delinquent, which is about a 53.8% drop. So it was a significant drop for how quickly those to be able to pull that cash in faster and get those invoices paid quicker. Next slide, please. So now let's go ahead and take a look at a video on how the automation works. So right now we are in the automation inside of Sage AR Automation, formerly Lockstep. And you can see within here, we have our credit class, which is the heart of our system. This is what generates those automated emails going out to the customer, as well as those tasks when the user needs to reach out. And we understand that you might have different groups or segments of customers. You may want to have a different control message to, or just a different way of reaching out. So we have the ability to take your customers and break them out into those different groups or segments. Like, for example, our standard best practice here. Then each of these have different steps on them. And then so typically what we find in that manual process is that most users are being more reactive versus proactive. They're chasing customers that are 60, 90%, 90 days past due, and they're not able to touch all their accounts. So ways we can help them be more proactive. For example, we've got an invoice coming due step that generates at 10 to 7 days before that due date, encouraging that customer to make a payment to try to help pull that cash in faster. As well as we've got an invoice presentment step that will include that link to the portal where they can go in and pay that invoice right away. Then if you are offering credit limits or per customer credit hold, we do have a % credit use field that would help you be more proactive in the fact that they can generate an automated email out to the customer when, say, they've hit 80% of their credit limit, encourage them to make that payment to try to pull that cash in, as well as prevent them from being put on that credit hold status. If they do get put on that credit hold status, we do have the ability to create an activity for that user to reach out so they can work with them to get off that credit hold status. So next, we'll go ahead and look at the self-service portal. So the benefits of this, it helps deflect those inbound emails, maybe asking for a copy of that PDF. It also helps automate that cash application back and helps to save time with that dispute management and improve employee satisfaction. And we actually have found that with our, we have prospects coming to us where their customers are coming to them asking for that self-service portal. And after COVID, we found that there's definitely been a huge uptick in the need for self-service portals to allow for that customer to get out at any time and be able to self-serve. Next slide, please. So with that in the benchmark, we found that we were able to bring the average days delinquent down from 24 to 10 days, and we were able to see that past due reduce from 24% down to 16% as well. So we saw by offering that portal, we were able to help automate and be able to automate that cash application and offer that payment right there, which brought that average days delinquent down and that past due down as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at a video of the portal. Now we'll take a look at how the self-service portal works. So how this works is a customer of yours receives an email out of the system, like the one I show here. And then what that email does is it contains a link to that self-service portal. It's a view statement button here. This is essentially a single sign-on link, so there's no need for the customer to have to remember a username and password, nor do they have to sign up for anything. All they really have to do is receive an email out of the system containing that link to be able to access it. So if we're one of your customers and we just received this email, we can go ahead and click on the button to access the self-service portal. Now, we find that a lot of our prospects that talk to us that their customers give a lot of requests for PDF copies of invoices before they can make the payment. We found that in our benchmark study, that you can add as much as 5 days onto that invoice lifecycle. So we can help with that in the fact that the customer can come in, they can select an invoice or a group of invoices. They can easily download that PDF copy right here, as well as they can make a payment. They can pay by credit card or ACH. They can save that payment information for future use, as well as they can roll an auto pay, which will automatically pay their invoices on the due date or a specific day of the month. We also have the way to do surcharging around credit cards, and then we can potentially post that payment back into Sage as well. Other things that they can do on the portal, they have the ability to send a message and upload any supporting docs for that message. So whether they're tax exempt and trying to send you the tax exempt form, or they're disputing invoice and trying to upload supporting docs for that dispute, they can easily do either of those here. If they are disputing an invoice, they can click on the dispute button. They can select that reason code, add that message, and submit it. Nice thing is our reason code is completely customizable, and you can have as many as you need. You can have a small set for the customer to choose from, and a broader set for the team to choose from as well. And whenever that dispute is done or that message is sent, that collector is notified right away of that dispute or that message for them to start working it. They also can do a promise to pay. They can select that promise to pay date, add that message and submit it. Nice thing is that typically in that manual process, this is being tracked in somebody's spreadsheet or in somebody's calendar, having to go back into Sage to look up, see if they've paid. The nice thing about our system is that it tracks it for the user. It only alerts the user if they pay, if they break it. If they pay it, then the system closes the activity and collector doesn't have to worry about it. So it's a little bit of time savings there for the collector. Then they can also take this grid, they can export to Excel. They can view all their closed invoices, as well as what payments are made against those invoices, and then vice versa on the payment side. They can see a history of messages for the collector. You can see the collector's profile, as well as any documents you might want to upload for them. These could be W-9 forms, contracts, anything at the customer level you want them to be able to have access to. So next, let's take a look at activity management. So, we looked at the automation, which sends out those automated emails in that self-service portal. Now, within the system, we can create that activity list for that user, is what the picture is on the right, and being able to tell them who they need to reach out to and give them a 360-degree view of that account to be able to review that account before they make the phone call or send that email. So this helps eliminate having to work off that aging spreadsheet like what Whitney showed in the couple slides before this. It helps to automate the activity reporting because everything's saved in the system under that account. It helps maximize the number of activities per collector. And because it's done by the automation, you actually can prioritize what shows up on that list, as well as in what order it shows up in. Next slide. So what we looked at three different things. We looked at no communication, which is the less than 40%, the one on the right, which is about 34% past due. And then we looked at with automation of greater than 60% of that communication, which was about 23%. Then we actually saw the sweet spot was a mixture of automated communications and that user reaching out. We saw that we brought that past due down to about 16%. And in that benchmark study, we saw that it actually was in talking with the users, that a lot of the collectors enjoyed reaching out to customers and trying to help them. So help with doing that mix of automation and the user reaching out, it helped with the user being happier and having that whole process automated for them. Definitely helped with that happiness as well. Next slide. So let's go ahead and take a look at that activity management. So we're going to go to the home screen here, and we're going to look at one of our collectors, Alberta Grant. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into Alberta Grant, which will show us her dashboard. And so from within here, on her home screen, she is able to see how she's doing this month. She's got her next best activity. This essentially is that aging spreadsheet. But the nice thing about this is based on the automation. So management gets control of what shows up in this list, as well as in what order it shows up in. That way the collectors are working exactly what they want them to work, when they want them to work it. And then they have their messages section here. This essentially is their calendar and their email. So this is where they can see any follow-ups due today or past due, any unread emails, as well as any of those broken promises. And then when they're ready to work the first one on the list, all they have to do is click on it, and it's going to pull up that activity. So from within here, before they make that phone call or send the email, they can easily click the drop down here to be able to view their credit information, historical trends, so averages later information, if there's been any broken promises or disputes in the last 2 years, as well as the current aging. They can see transactional information as well. So payments made against the account, as well as all the open invoices on the account. So there's no need for them to have to go back in Intact to look up this information. And then if they are sending that email, they can go to the email tab here and be able to select that predefined template or fill out the email themselves. They can come to the attachments tab here and be able to easily attach things to the email, like a PDF copy of the invoice or report like a statement, or they can browse their computer and attach it from the computer as well. Now, let's say they're on the phone with the customer or getting an email from the customer with that promise to pay information. They can enter it here on behalf of the customer and mark that the customer promised. And if the customer breaks that promise to pay, then the system will fill out the actual part down here, mark it as broken, give you amounts that they paid and date that they paid it if they made a partial payment, or if they paid nothing, it'd be blank like it is here. And again, it's worth that collector here of that broken promise. Now, let's say this is a troubled payer and they're trying to schedule a follow-up in advance. And so typically in that manual process, we find that those follow-ups are being tracked in the calendar. And before they're able to follow up with that customer, we found that most users are having to go back into Intact, look up to see if that invoice is paid before they follow up on it. The nice thing is they can schedule a follow-up here. And then if that invoice gets paid before that follow-up date, then the system is going to close the follow-up and the activity because it's not needed anymore because the invoice has been paid. So again, it's a little bit of time savings there for the collector. The last thing I want to show is this save and next item feature. And it's one of my favorite features because it's such a simple thing. All it does is saves the activity here and pull the next open list down here. But we find that this is where we can see that big time savings for the collector. Because this is the equivalent to that collector in that manual process, going back to that aging spreadsheet, adding that note, taking that next customer, going to Intact to look up that customer, to the email to send the email, and back to aging spreadsheet to add a note. So we find that this button alone is saving our current customers' users, on average, about 5 to 10 minutes in that transition from one customer to next, because we're able to automate that process for them.
Awesome. Thanks for running through that, David. And I'm just going to wrap up here and kind of summarize, what the takeaway is. And what our studies really showed was that companies that are embracing technology, like Sage AI Automation, they're using it to address the limitations of a collections process, and they're seeing a tremendous improvement in their AR. All the companies that were in the benchmark were able to either reduce their past due percentage or their average days delinquent, or improve employee satisfaction or reduce manual time spent on things. But our research really showed that those top performing companies utilized a balance of, like David said, those automated activities and that personalized collector outreach combined with that online payment portal. And then the customer self-service is really that sweet spot. Adding all these together really breaks those barriers for those customers and allows for your employees to then focus on that high value work. So I will go ahead and hand this over to Ryan to talk about one of our customers.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Whitney. So just want to review AmSpec, one of our customers that was able to save a tremendous amount of time. So they're able to save their team 10,600 hours off of what they were spending annually on AR automation, or by using AR automation. They were spending that doing manual collections tasks. So being able to increase the working capital by $10.1 million, eliminated their staff turnover. One thing that they were doing is they were managing that spreadsheet that you saw earlier that Whitney showed with all the colors on it. It was extremely complicated, and they were hiring people with MBAs to come in and manage the collections process. And it was very frustrating for them to be really managing a team spreadsheet and not really be getting a jump or getting really any movement traction on those collections. So it was a great thing for them to deploy the solution. They're able to eliminate the staff turnover that they were having and increased the satisfaction of the employees that were there doing those jobs as well. So they increased collector productivity by threefold, which is what we see on average as well. So this solution comes in three different options, three different platforms. Our Essentials platform really is just for somebody that's looking for the basic collection process. The big difference here is that you're sending 4-step automation process. So we're supplying the customer with the invoice, a coming due notice, a statement as needed, and then a continuous reach out if they go past due as well. More of a static message. With the standard, we have the ability to add what you see here, the goal management, the online promises to pay, as well as the credit scoring option. We also have a more robust collection process where you can have escalating letters for each step that they are going past due. And our Pro model supports the multi-entity account hierarchy if you have parent-child relationships, as well as customized sequences. If you need custom workflows for different groups of customers, we have the ability to really segment that out and get exactly what you're looking for with that Pro platform, as well as Power BI reporting. So if you decide to move forward with this solution, the implementation is about an 11-week implementation cycle. We understand that the person that's doing this role can't just stop what they're doing and stop collecting just to train. So this deploys about 1.5 to 2 hours a week of training for that collector. And that's really what it takes to get that 11-week implementation timeline. We have the ability to adjust that if needed, but just that's really what the implementation looks like. Once we do that sync, you're actually seeing your live data in the system for the weeks 6 through 11, where you can work inside the system as well.
If there are any questions, please feel free to enter them into either the chat or the Q&A now. and we can definitely have the team help. I do want to thank you so much, Ryan, Whitney, David. Excellent information today. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Okay, we do have a question coming in. Brett is asking, on the portal, can you turn off the dispute button?
You can. The dispute button is configurable, so we have the ability to turn on and off the dispute and the promise to pay button if needed. So yes.
Excellent, good control.
I think,
All
you know,
right.
one that we get often is, you know, just what type of user, if there are multiple users or if there's just one set of users. So I don't know if Ryan or David, you want to touch on that, just because I know that's one that we get a lot.
Yeah, David, I'll let you jump in on that.
Yeah, so we do have the two different types of users. And if I cut out, I apologize. My internet keeps going in and out. But so we have two different types of users. We have a credit user, which is the full user in the system. And they're typically the ones who are working those activities. And then we have an inquiry user, which is a read-only access. So these are users that are typically management who want to get on, view that dashboard, maybe poking around accounts. They can leave a message on that account as the user to review that message at that point. Those inquiry users can also take payments in the system. So it's good for management as well as potentially a backup team that you want to give access to, but don't want to pay for the full credit user.
So thanks, David.
Yeah, excellent information. And thank you for bringing up a frequently asked question. I know that not everybody thinks of them while we're on our presentation.
No problem. I would say the only other one that we get a lot is just around if we work with credit card processors or merchant services, or if we only work with one, but we work with several. I don't remember how many off the top of my head right now, but we do this to allow you guys, the customers, to kind of shop around to find which one is best for you, or if you have one that you're already working with. We work with most main ones too. So I'd say that's the only probably other question that we get quite a bit.
All right. Well, I would very much like to thank the Sage AR automation team for their time today. Excellent presentation, amazing information, and it looks like a lot of time savings. I do also want to thank, of course, all of you who attended. We know your time is valuable, and we really appreciate you spending some of it with us. In the meantime, if you need anything, please reach out because we're always here to help. And until next time, I hope everyone has a great afternoon.